Teru no Kimochi, a series about sacrifice, change, and sexuality. Now, I don't have much to say on the sexuality front of the series. It is a prominent feature, but I don't really have anything to add or take away from it. I'm just really going to use it in the way it refers to the other two main topics. Now, one of the main things about this series, and where I'd see most people being confused about it, is within the character of Haruka. She is easily the most complex and layered character in the series, and her motivations are probably one of the hardest things to nail down, but I can pretty much say without a doubt that her first and foremost reasoning was to be that of a mother. She was trying to be a mother first and foremost, and was just trying to raise her child the best of her ability, and I think that is where the tragedy of the entire series lies, and really where all the conflict comes from. Haruka herself as a character, of course, was a father's girl. She very much cared for her father and very much looked up to him and cared about him a great deal, obviously. And when she saw her father within Kazumi, the father of Shintaro, she felt something towards him. She felt some sort of love or compassion, some sort of attraction towards him, and that led, of course, to their engagement and their marriage. But after that, she just wanted to do fine by him. She just wanted to make him proud. She just wanted him to be happy and be the best wife she could be. And being the best wife she could be required her to be the best mother she could be. So she ended up taking the role of Shintaro's mother. And that, of course, didn't necessarily go according to plan for her. Or rather to say, not the first plan. Shintaro is, well, he's a NEET. By all means, he's NEET. He's locked himself in his room for the past 15 years. As soon as his mother died, he closed himself off to everybody and really became self-fulfilling. He was no longer a normal guy. He was just cared about fulfilling his carnal desires and just cared about staying in his room and not having to deal with the hardships of the world around him. And that's what leads him into his relationship with Haruka. He really only went off of carnal desires before, and as soon as he sees a beautiful woman in his house, he gains an attraction to her. He becomes very enthralled with her to the point of changing himself and changing what he stands for and what he does, slowly but surely, to be around her more, to be more connected to her. And through this connection, he starts to rely on her, not just physically, like with the way she gives him his food, water, and everything he needs, but emotionally as well. He cannot function without her after a certain point in the series, after he becomes too dependent. When outside presence came in, it was very clear to them what was happening and the situation that was going on. Kotaro wasn't coming out and being more in the world for himself, but rather for her, so he can become more attached to her and more dependent upon her. And that led down the path of Kotaro no longer being self-fulfilling, but dependent upon another person. And you might say, a NEET is already dependent on another person, but that's what brings it to a whole new level. Instead of just being physically dependent, he was also emotionally and psychologically dependent upon them. And once you get both of those, they're no longer able to fend for themselves in the slightest bit. They're 100% dependent upon a person, and that is when he was cut off. This is a tactic employed in real life a lot of the time with a spouse or a person in a relationship with a drug addict. They'll make them completely dependent upon them, and when the drug addict is cut off, they have to fend for themselves. They have to survive. When this happened to Shintaru, he had to survive. He was in a life or death situation, but it's a little bit more nefarious than that. Haruka had set a plan for him. She slowly made him depend on her more and more, all while knowing that she was going to cut him off. And she gave him just a little taste of what he was looking for, just a little taste of a more beneficial and a better future, of a better life, and then took it away from him, leaving him on his own, fending for himself, but also fighting for what he could have. He had all the means in the world to survive. He had every reason to fight for something, and if he didn't fight, he would die. There was no circumstance where he wouldn't make it out just fine. It's a cold, cunning, manipulative plan, and that's why it worked. But it doesn't feel right, now does it? It feels wrong. It feels not quite there. Yes, the plan worked, but at what cost? She had to sacrifice herself. She had to take away what she cared about most. She could no longer see her son ever again, and of course, what happened between her and her son is not the best situation in most people's opinions. But beyond that, beyond just that, beyond the sacrifice she made, it also led to him understanding something, understanding a woman's touch. He understood that a woman's touch touch, when he hired a hooker, it wasn't the same. It was whole, it was lifeless. It did the same thing. He got the same result, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't right. And when he got older and started to fend for himself, and he finally got married and had a kid, he finally understood that neither of the women's touches he's felt throughout his life were the right thing. Neither of them were correct. And when he goes and confronts his mother and breaks down and says, "Thank you, mother," that is him coming to the realization and accepting the fact that what he had felt throughout his life was not really what he thought it was. It was something different entirely. This story is a story of incest, but more specifically what incest actually is, and portraying it in a correct and realistic manner. Most of the time, with real incest in psychology, it's defined as someone not having that little thing in the back of their head saying, "No, this is wrong." And instead of having that, just feeling strong emotions towards another person. Without that, and confusing those strong emotions for an attraction or a love. And that isn't quite what an actual attraction is. It's not what actual love is. It's something different. It's a different type of emotion. And that's why Shintaro could never be happy with Haruka, because of the fact it was not actual love. It was not an actual attraction. It was something else. It was the emotions he would feel to a mother rather than anything else. Shintaro had to sacrifice his life of not doing anything to live a more filled life. Haruka had to sacrifice herself to not be around her son anymore and have a strained relationship. This series is the most realistic portraying of incest I think I've ever seen in anime, especially since most anime's versions of incest, that actually, no, I can touch your boobs. I just can't touch more than your boobs because that would be incest and that would be wrong. But that's fine though. That's fine. Well, it's not generally the best looked upon. This series single-handedly takes on both being a NEET and the ideal of incest in one fell swoop and executes both of them realistically and well. And that's why it's such a well-done series. It's such a disturbing, strange series from the start. When you see that she falls for the father because he's reminding her of her own father, that's disturbing. And the fact that everything that happens in it, everything that happens throughout the series is just disturbing and uncomfortable and just leaves you feeling not well. It's all just wrong and almost distasteful to it, but it's never distasteful. It's always handling it in the most realistic, most tasteful manner. Even though the mangaka of this did Gantz and other horror manga, I feel like this is their most horrifying manga, simply for the reason of how uncomfortable it is. It's a great little story, but everything is just drenched in this discomfort, in this pain, in this suffering, this sacrifice. And the reason it is the most horrifying of them all is because it's most akin to reality.